So far, so good. It's time to go racing again. The Dodger has just been put up for a couple weeks. Ever since we got home from the last trip to Ohio, I had to throw it off to the side and go ahead and take care of some work. The old girl did me well out there, and I was feeling pretty bad about not touching it in about a week. See, I do some work for Hot Shot Secret where I fly out, film and photograph different events, so my last weekend was spent in Indiana getting that work done. But knowing that this weekend was coming up and I wanted to take the family back out to Ohio, it was time to figure out just how good the Dodger was doing and see if we were ready to take the trip. I somehow convinced the folks at Marion County Raceway to go ahead and add a SHITBOX Showdown class to their Saturday No Prep Series race that they were having going on. The truck's been doing pretty well, and we've been giving it a little more nitrous and getting it a little more figured out every time. I figured this weekend I might have myself a little competitor. But it appeared the truck had other plans. This tire has been going flat since the day I put it on. It is what it is. Nothing a little bit of air can't fix, and I'm sure some smoky burnouts will do it just right. But first things first, let's even see if it'll fire up. The Dodger lives. It's ready to go racing. Well, sort of. I know we've been having a problem with the battery lately, so I definitely want to grab another one of those and run home to grab my portable air pump to get this tire filled up. I stopped back home to check on the girls and see how the RV was coming along.
What you doing?
You're filming. What?
What you doing, meatball? What you doing, mommy? Huh? I don't have time for this nonsense.
You don't have time.
So I've been able to see on the Holly that we're getting 14 volts, so that means to me that the battery is charging properly. You know, we are getting good charge from the alternator, so I figured this got to be it. It's just got to be the battery crapping out on us. We're going to test that theory this weekend with a brand new battery. We'll get it tightened up, fired up.
Poor old Hemi. You can hear it ticking in the background.
Oh, so far so good.
try this again, and you can tell that that light changes brightness too, which tells me we're definitely getting 14 volts because that lights are getting brighter as it's running. We were getting there. So the game plan was to get it on over here, get the battery changed out. That worked, obviously. That's working well. Truck's running. There's still some stuff I have to do with the tuning that I've been putting off. I need to get that figured out. But I wanted to go ahead and pump up this rear tire that was flat earlier. But it looks like my little box here is about dead. So that's about my luck. The game plan for all this was to get it all ready so I can go testing tonight because it looks like it's going to rain the next 2 days. Now, I don't know how I'm going to make any of that work because I don't think anybody is available to come help me. And honestly, if nothing else, I just don't like testing the truck by myself because when you're out in the street doing something sketchy, it's just not worth it to be by yourself. In case something happens, something goes wrong, it's always good to have somebody with you. So I'm going to get this box on the charger. That guy's gonna bang a bunch of stuff on the trailer as he drives by, and we're gonna see if it's possible for me to test tonight. I don't know. It's supposed to rain. This is gonna be like the only chance I got, so we'll have to see what we can make work.
That night, the raindrops started coming. I just couldn't beat the rain. The next day didn't look much more promising either. As a matter of fact, we got a tornado alert. And now we're kind of at the point where I realized I'm probably not going to get to test the truck, which means I'm not going to get any more good data, I'm not going to get any more good content, and how am I going to put a video out? So I figured with the impending tornado coming our way and everything else going on, I would take the time to sit down and tell you guys the story of the Brooklyn Dodger, how it came to be, and why it's so special. It's not a story I get to tell often, but now's a really good time. And I think you guys will enjoy hearing a little bit more about it before you see it racing in Ohio this weekend.
Well, as you guys can see, unfortunately, going to Ohio, testing for Ohio, this whole thing hasn't really worked out this week. But I really wanted to make sure that we got a video out before I left for my trip. So I figured I would sit down and do something that I've never really done. And that is tell you guys the story of the Brooklyn Dodger and how it came to be and that kind of whole thing. I was on a podcast recently, the Truck Show podcast. It's on Motor Trend, and I got to tell the story a little bit, but I feel like I haven't gotten to fully tell the story yet. So I guess we'll sit down and talk about how the Brooklyn Dodger, badass truck, came to be, why it came to be, and everything else. The way that the truck actually came to be was Dwayne from DNS Fabricators, Dwayne's the old man, had the truck sitting in his yard and he was getting ready to go ahead and scrap it. So he wanted to sell it. He was going to sell it to me dirt cheap. So I was like, you know what? I want to buy that thing. I told him I would buy it just because I knew it was one of those things, like it was a few $100s. I knew if I had set it in my driveway and let it sit out in the yard, somebody would come by and offer me double what I paid for it, and I would make money on it if nothing else. At the time, it was on the original frame, everything, and that truck was actually the parts truck to a truck that they were building, that Brandon was building on an S10 frame. So this was the parts truck. This is where all the crappy parts ended up that they didn't want, that weren't good enough to use, you know, that they had found better parts for, whatever. So I had planned to buy the truck before anything even came up, you know, before the 2 and 2 was put together about the television show. Now, if you guys are watching this, some of you may know, I would hope you guys would know by now, a couple weeks ago, I was on Discovery Channel's new show, Getaway Driver.
I'm about to get bored on. The conditions out there are terrible.
I hope you're adaptable. It's all on you now.
Wow. Getaway Driver.
Where I competed against other drivers to pretty much evade pursuers and escape. It's like a real life run from the cops scenario. And it was a ton of fun and it was an incredible experience. And maybe one day I'll make a video just about that itself. But what happened is that show kept getting pushed back and pushed back because of COVID restrictions and stuff.
So at the time, I had bought a, I don't know, like a 2001 or something Mustang, little 5-speed car. It was just something that I knew could get smashed up. I knew going into that show that there was a likelihood that things were going to get smashed and damaged and everything, and that's why I didn't bring the Nova. So I bought this little Mustang, whatever, and I figured we would do that. And then I was talking to my buddy Justin, you know, also DNS Fabricators. I'll lay this out for you. DNS Fabricators is Dwayne and Sons. Dwayne's the old man. Justin and Brandon are the sons. Now they've got Chad. They've got some other guys that work there. So, you know, that's how that whole relationship works. And I was talking to Justin one night, and we were coming up pretty close to, I think at this point, like they had told me when they were picking up the vehicles, because they sent a carrier to come get the vehicles and meet us down in Georgia. Some people drove them themselves, all that kind of stuff, but I opted to just have them come pick it up and make it easy on myself. So it was like late December, you know, it was like sometime after Christmas, and I was talking to Justin, and I was like, you know what would be really cool? If we could somehow take that truck that I want to buy from Dwayne and we could bring that on the show, because honestly, the Mustang just doesn't fit my personality. We had done a little bit of stuff with it. I'd done a little bit of filming with it, and I don't know that anybody even saw it. You know, we had made some little videos and this, that, and the other. You know, I'd have to check, but I'm not even sure that anybody saw any of that stuff, if we ever even put it out. But, you know, I was like, you know, how cool would it be to do and put on a different frame and this, that, and the other? And Justin's like, well, we can do this and this and this. And long story short, we kind of talked ourselves into it, but we knew we only had like maybe 2.5 weeks at that point. So I had picked up the phone, I called around, found somebody who had an S10 that they were willing to actually trade me. My buddy down south was willing to trade me 2 turbos I had for the S10, and he gave me some cash on top of it. So the S10, when we got it, was a complete pile of crap. But the nice thing about it was that it was already V8 swapped. It already had a 350 small block Chevy with a 350 trans in it. So part of it was like kind of cheating. I already knew we'd probably be taking that out. I had a different 350 trans laying around in the garage, and at the time, you know, that motor turned over, so we figured we would just end up using that, no big deal. And we ended up, you know, I ended up going down there, picking the thing up, bringing it up, and within about 24 hours, it went from an idea we had to, okay, now I've got a truck, I've got a donor, we've got everything, shit's real, let's get to it. So we pretty much piled up in Dwayne's garage behind his house for 2 weeks straight. And I mean straight, like every day we went over there and worked and put hours and hours and hours in. You know, Dwayne, Justin, Brandon, myself, essentially that was the 4 of us that built it. We had some help, you know, every once in a while from some other friends. You know, I know Ant came over, I know Tom Bankley was there. But it was also kind of a scenario where we were working in a small, tight garage, and everybody had something to do. So we were already in each other's way. You know, there was only one welder, there was only so many extension cords, there's only so much power. You know, it was January, it was ice cold, so we were heating the shop up with diesel fuel, you know, with a diesel, you know, heater. And we really just busted ass. And as we got a little bit further and further along, you know, it became, there was kind of less for everybody to do just because we had gotten so much done. And that thing was like a miracle, because we started by ripping the body off the frame. And the first thing we did is set the cab down on the frame to see if this was even possible, how it was going to work, whatever. All we ended up having to do was cut the rear body, or the front body mounts off of the frame, the S10 frame, moved them back 4 inches, welded them in place, and then the rear and front body mounts for the 55 Dodge, boom, right through the S10 frame. We got incredibly lucky, and there was a lot of stuff along the way that just worked in our favor. You know, it was like it was meant to be. So we ended up building it. You know, we cut and hacked and didn't measure half of anything and just threw stuff together and everything else, and ended up putting together this badass little truck. So somewhere about, you know, a week and a half into it or whatever,
you know, maybe closer to 2 weeks, we realized that, you know, we were getting snow up here. Production was delayed a little bit. They were delayed in picking up the vehicles, so it bought us a little extra time. And then, you know, we got the truck wrapped up.
I forgot to say this somehow, but we filmed the entire 2 weeks, 3 weeks of build, and all those videos are up on our YouTube channel.
And we were driving it with no windshield in it at one point. We were doing some pretty wild and stupid, dangerous stuff. So, you know, no seatbelts, no windshield, none of that. There was some minimum safety requirements that the show had. We had to have at least a 4-point roll bar, a 3-point seatbelt, and a helmet. So we went a little bit more with the roll bar. We went with a 5-point harness. We put a racing seat in it. We did normal safety stuff, neutral safety switch, trans, you know, drive shaft loop, kill switch in the back. And that was just more so because the rules for the show were really pretty loose, and we weren't sure what was going to happen. And I just didn't want to get down there and then them have like a safety guy and be like, well, you can't do this because, you know, this thing isn't safe enough. So we tried to do a lot of the normal drag racing things that we thought would be safe and would pass some sort of a tech if it ended up that those people had some sort of a tech. So, which they did. They had a safety guy that came around and checked for the minimums and all that kind of stuff, and, you know, we were fine. So, you know, we threw a nitrous plate on it just in case. If you guys watched the show, obviously I didn't get to use any nitrous. You know, I will tell you guys from the start, the moment it started raining, I turned that bottle off and I was like, I'm not even flipping the switch. We're not even opening the bottle, nothing, because it's just not even worth it. So, but, you know, we built the truck. We got a little bit of time delay. Then we ended up putting everybody in the truck. So it was an awesome moment. We got to use a private airport, a little airstrip. And, you know, we put Mallory in it. We put my mom in it. They did their first burnouts ever. We put Justin's wife, Brandon's wife.
Oh, you'll warm up real quick. Don't worry about that. What?
You know, me, Justin, Brandon, Dwayne, we all drove it, which was a great experience and it was incredibly awesome. The flip side to that was that was pretty much the last of the driving of the truck. I mean, I drove it around back roads, whatever, making little hits, but that was about the best opportunity I was going to have to really try to slide it around, to figure out how the thing worked, all that kind of stuff. And honestly, to me, it was more worth it to share those experiences with those people than it was for me to spend 6 hours in the truck that day and, you know, learn to drive it better. You guys have to realize that when I drove on that show, that's like, you know, maybe the 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th time I've ever even drove the truck, period, let alone doing what we tried to do out there. So, you know, like I said, I'll do a thing about the show. That was a lot of fun, and obviously anybody who watched it, I had a blast. I can tell you that regardless of what anybody says, I probably had the most fun out of any driver there. You know, part of it was a great experience, and then the other part of it is I made it a very great experience. So you have that power to do that yourself in a lot of things in life. But so after that, we filmed the show. It got sent back here. It was a little smashed up, but it wasn't too bad. I ended up blowing the motor, so it just kind of sat around because there was no purpose. We couldn't even really talk about why we built the truck. I was still under contract. I still am under contract, but we couldn't talk about why the truck was built. So everybody was like, well, why are you doing this? Why aren't you, you know, fixing the Nova, getting that ready, everything? You know, a lot of things got put to the side for me to go ahead and move forward and to take that experience. So the truck sat around for a while. No big deal, just really wasn't getting used. The motor was blown up. I pulled it out. We brought it over to DNS, and them guys were going to dig or die, so they were going to try to use parts and pieces of that motor in Brandon's truck, and a whole mess of stuff happened there. And Brandon ended up blowing up the motor that they put together that was like a combination of 4 motors. So it is what it is, whatever, you know, it happens. And around that time, Cletus was doing Cletus and Cars down at the Freedom Factory, and he was doing a big burnout contest. So the way it worked is you had to go on and apply to be a part of it. So I said, okay, you know, I'll go in and I'll apply. I'll put the truck in there. And believe it or not, we got accepted. So that kind of put me in a pickle, because I did, you know, I was thinking about possibly bringing the truck to dig or die, but then the Cletus thing was like the next weekend and everything else. And this brings me to another story about the truck. There's a lot of great stories about the truck, and I don't know that I'm ever going to get to tell them all on film or even all in person. But every time somebody points at something on the truck or asks about this or that, there's usually a story connected to it, and I think that's why the truck is so special. But in this Cletus and Car scenario, we were going to the burnout contest, and somebody online had mentioned, hey man, I'd like to toss you a couple bucks for gas. We're in Delaware, that's all the way down in Florida. It was going to be a big expensive trip. And I thought about it for a little while, and I said, you know, I don't want to just take people's money. You know, I really appreciate the support, because it's awesome to have all you folks, you know, so supportive of DNR and everything that I do. But I would feel kind of guilty of just like, oh, sure, just send me money and I'm just going to use it for gas and whatever. So what we ended up doing is deciding that we will take anybody who wants to donate any amount of gas money. Doesn't matter, $1, $5, $10, $50, $100. It doesn't matter what the amount was. Whatever you wanted to donate, and we would take everybody's names or what they wanted and print it out on a sticker and put it on the cab of the truck. So if you guys see now, all those names on the back of the cab of the truck, those are all people who supported me and supported this journey and helped us get to Cletus and Cars. And my deal with that was that I wanted to take them along for the ride with me. You know, there's even a couple like sponsor stickers, you know, mixed in there, some companies and stuff that helped out. Unfortunately, at Cletus and Cars, the situation was not maybe the way I thought it would have been. You know, it was, I think it was like their first one there, so they've obviously got some stuff to get worked out. But I was sad because we never got to tell that story to anybody. You know, I was anticipating that when we got down there, you know, that people would be around the truck and I would get to tell all the people in Florida, like, look, this is what happened. This is how we got here. And all of these wonderful people helped us out. And that's why we're here now. Unfortunately, that didn't work out that way. But that was, you know, how we ended up getting there. So literally in this driveway, I LS swapped the Dodger, and Sneaky Performance came through in a really big way, and we ended up getting the Holly Terminator, which is actually back on the truck now, and we ran it on that, on literally the Holly startup tune. Unfortunately, we had some camera issues where for some reason the file didn't save, so I had to redo the middle part of this. So I think where I left off was we had ran it on the Holly startup tune, which was a testament to a couple things. Number one, Holly, you know, obviously they make a great product. They have a great product. Snake Eater Performance, we use their injectors. They fired up. They worked flawlessly. You know, companies like Hot Shots with the fluids. I'm telling you, I can't do any of this crazy stuff that I do to these vehicles without the support of good fluids. So, you know, Hughes, Jax Wax, everybody on board. It's really a team effort. But we ended up going down there on the Holly startup tune and just going wild, having a blast. You know, unfortunately, what I was talking about where we didn't get to tell the stories, where they had parked all the competitors was in an area where the spectators were not allowed. So all day, I didn't get to talk. I didn't get to interact with anybody. The only interaction I had was when I was physically driving the truck during the burnout contest. So we ended up doing Florida and had a good time, you know, enjoyed ourselves. We had set out a goal and we accomplished it. And then from there, there was a race the next weekend at English Mountain Raceway. So a couple buddies were throwing a race out there, and they wanted me to come out, and I was planning on it anyway. So while we were in Florida, I was like, you know, if we just detour and go straight to Tennessee, we can take our time, relax, get there, make this 1 week trip, a 2 week trip. Kids are out of school, whatever. So we went out to English Mountain and started, you know, started getting ready to race the truck. This was going to be the first time the truck was ever going to be raced. And, you know, we started driving it around. Obviously, it was still on the startup tune, so I wanted to get, you know, timing, fueling, all that stuff figured out. It wasn't really making a ton of power yet. And I was putting Mallory in the truck, getting her a little bit comfortable with driving it. You know, obviously she's driven it before, but, you know, different power plant, different things. So wanted to get it worked out. And through testing, we developed some problems, which led to an exploded bell housing, which was entirely my fault. It was a combination of things, you know, converter, spacing, bolts, just the whole setup and everything. Somehow managed to survive the thrashing we put on it at Cletus and Cars, but didn't survive trying to take it drag racing. So after that, the truck came home and sat a while because it was time to get back to work on the Nova. You know, I wanted to race, and I really didn't think the truck would be any kind of fast or anything or competitive. And, you know, there's a lot of work that needs to get done on the Nova. So I got back to work on that. And during that time, we started hitting, you know, local street scene, which is really good right now. There's a lot of guys racing here locally on the street, and little $50 cash days on crap roads and this, that, and the other. So I was like, well, I want to go racing again. And the quickest way to do that is to get the truck back together. So I had that idea in my mind. And then a buddy of mine, Don Will, if you guys know him, No Prep Travelers, that purple beetle, the big black guy that gambles on the starting line over at all the No Prep Kings events, he hits me up and he's like, man, they're coming to Pennsylvania, like, you have to come. And I'm like, but it doesn't make any sense. Like, I can't compete in small tire, and, you know, they've got a daily driver class that I don't fit the rules of. So none of this really makes any sense for me. They've got one other class, 7.0, and I can't even run 7.0. Don assured me that it didn't matter, and I was going to have a blast no matter what. And he's like, dude, even I've run the 7.0 class, and I'm nowhere near 7.0. And I was like, all right. So me and Mallory threw the truck together, you know, got it done, went up there on the old carb setup that was off of the Nova, the carb and the nitrous plate, and we went and raced 7.0. Now, we didn't go anywhere near 7.0, but, you know, we had a blast. The fans out there were awesome. It was a great time. You know, at that time, nobody had known that the truck was going to be on TV yet. Like, some of the previews and stuff were out, and I was in some of the previews, but this was, like, still really fresh. So 95% or more just came over because the truck was so cool and they thought it was so awesome. Even though I'd gone out round one and both Friday and Saturday of 7.0, it was still a really, really good time. So after that, we came home, and I decided that it was time to start street racing it. You know, I wanted to jump in these $50 cash days, and they were having another one. Went out there, and wouldn't you know, I went out round one. I didn't have any nitrous. There was a problem with the button. I had the nitrous just on a push button on the steering wheel, and that wire got caught up in the steering column and just barely nicked a wire to where it was shorting it out. So if I had tried to launch the truck on motor, it would just, you know, sputter, and it just didn't react well because the carb wasn't right. Now, Bill and I had a plan where I was going to go buy the parts, and he was actually going to FaceTime me. We were going to do some kind of live thing where we fixed the carburetor live so that everybody could see, like, me, a guy who's got no business touching a carburetor, never does, you know, can fix it, and they're not that bad and scary. So that was our game plan. We just hadn't gotten around to it yet. And I ended up racing a little bit more that night, had a couple grudge races. Sometimes the nitrous worked, sometimes it didn't. It wasn't until the end of the night that I figured out that that's what kept blowing the fuse, was that, you know, getting wrapped up in the steering wheel, and this tiny little nick in the wire was just enough. So I got pretty frustrated with it, and when I came back, I decided, you know what, let's just go ahead and put the fuel injection back on, because at least I can make it work. You know, I don't need to buy new things. I don't need somebody else's help. You know, I can struggle my way enough through it. I can make it work. And me and Mallory ended up doing that. And then that was when we went to Ohio, and that's kind of where like some of the last videos left off and where you guys saw it last. So I guess what else we talk about is like, what are the plans for the Dodger? There really aren't any. I can tell you guys that my goal above all else is to be small tire competitive. No prep, street, you know, I want to be competitive in small tire. And to be honest with you, the truck is just probably not going to do that. If it did, it would require so much more. Even still, it is still kind of a pile of crap. Like, don't get me wrong, we all love the truck to death, but it is what it is. You know, it was never built for that purpose. It was built very quickly just so we could make the television show, and you know, some of the things were not thought out for long-term use. And we never even thought that, you know, we knew it was a possibility the truck could be smashed up and it could end up in a junkyard down there, like it wouldn't even be worth bringing back. So ultimately the goal is to get back to work on the Nova. Now, the only way I do that is by continuing to make videos and continuing to make content, because as the channel grows, you know, it will allow me to make progression on that Nova a lot easier. So I want to race, you know, I want to race with my friends. I want to race with Billy and actually have a shot at racing. With that being said, when the Nova gets done, you know, I don't know, we might put Mallory in the truck, let her race it. You know, Mallory busts a lot of ass, and people don't understand just how much work it is for me and her to live this life that we're living, especially in the situation that we're in, you know, and we have kids, and every no prep race that's worth a crap is, you know, 6, 7, 8 hours plus away from home. It's not easy. So the flip side is she does a lot of work and never gets the enjoyment out of it, which the enjoyment part is the actual racing, you know. Damn fly. So I would like to see if we can get her in the driver's seat a little more and get her some of that enjoyment. And that's kind of, you know, what I hope to see happen with the truck. Ultimately, that is going to be the goal, is that I want to be competitive in that field with my friends and having fun. So I can tell you that there's a few things changing in my personal life and the way that I'm doing things. And I can tell you one of those things is that I want to really make a focus on making sure that these videos get done and get out, because we've brought in a whole new crowd of folks. You know, we're up a lot of subscribers, up a lot of views right now, and I really appreciate that, and I want to keep that momentum going. The better that we do on YouTube, the faster I will get to my goals. So I've already made some phone calls trying to figure out if I can get some help with the Nova, because with my schedule and trying to make all of this work, you have to realize that anytime I go to Ohio, it is a 8, 9, 10 hour ride one way. So go out there for a few days, ride back, come back home, and then you're pretty beat. You need a down day. We usually don't get that because we got to do SHITBOX orders and all that kind of stuff. www.shitboxsupply.com. Shameless plug. But, you know, we'll get there. So unfortunately, this video didn't go the way I wanted it to. There's not really any action. I wanted to go testing on the street, but rain, tornadoes, thunderstorms, everything got in the way of that. But I'm going to get back to getting ready to head out to Ohio, and we will be in Ohio this weekend for 2 events. Number 1, go to Marion County Saturday, and I'm going to compete in the SHITBOX Showdown. Marion County's having their No Prep Series Saturday, and I'll be in town for that. And then Sunday, I'm throwing an entire SHITBOX Sunday at Pacemakers filled with SHITBOX classes, tons of fun, affordable racing. So hopefully all you guys can make it out there. And I will see you guys in Ohio this weekend. It's also probably one of the last opportunities I'm going to get to bring the entire family for a little while. So I definitely wanted to make this trip. And Mallory's going to come. The girls are going to come. The dogs are coming. We're going to have a great time. And I can't wait to see all you guys out there.